we can really learn from this. So Mahatma Prabhu joined ISKCON in Berkeley, California in 1969, and he was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in March of 1970. So soon after he became initiated, I think he was still a teenager, if I remember correctly. So this was in Los Angeles and California, and second initiation in August of 1970. So first initiation 1970 in March, and then second in August, also by Srila Prabhupada. That's also in LA. And then Prabhu has been the temple president of 4 temples, started several preaching centers. Other services include book distribution, Sankirtan leader, college preaching, Western congregational development, working with the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education, counseling and helping preachers develop preaching strategies. He also creates recordings of kirtans and prayers, for which he is most well known for the Brahma Samhita, which we all very familiar with. And in 2006, he began focusing on delivering workshops on practical aspects of Krishna consciousness like japa, taking vows, forgiveness, marriage, and he's developed 15 different workshops for devotees. And people new to Krishna consciousness, this is like mainly for people new in KC. And in 2012, he began increasing his focus on workshops for non-devotees as well, and cooperates, and to this end started a company called Sattva. So very exciting. He's written 3 books and produced 7 music CDs, and we're looking forward to his kirtans today later on. So please stay tuned. And he began accepting disciples in 2013 as well. And 2016, he began developing self-paced online workshops, and currently he has 3 workshops, 2 forgiveness courses and 1 self-esteem course, and 3 online workshops to soon be released on vows, sexual purity, and 50 video series for people new to KC, along with a platform for group support for devotees on these topics. And during COVID, Prabhu has been giving 5 to 8 classes weekly on YouTube and Zoom. And normally he would travel to up to 6 months a year to Mexico, South America, South Africa, Mauritius, Australia, India, and Eastern and Western Europe, China. But obviously, due to the lockdown, he's been based in Alachua, like I says, delivering 5 to 8 classes a week. So this is absolutely amazing. It's mind blowing. It's people like me, it's unimaginable what you can achieve. If I just give 1 class a week, spending all week, just processing it and trying to make sure I don't forget anything, and hope nobody asks me difficult questions, all sorts of things going through our head. But this is amazing, so inspiring. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, and Dandvat Pranam to you, Prabhu, and want to give you 3 Hari Bols, please, to welcome you. Hari
Hari
Bol,
Bol,
Hari
Hari
Bol,
Bol,
Hari
Hari
Bol,
Bol.
Jai. Yeah. Prabhu, if you could have your unmute yourself, Prabhu.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvise Sasanyavadi Paschatya Dasatarine. So we can say this is my first time in Birmingham. I've actually never been there. And I think we were trying to arrange that I would come there at some point in the past, but it didn't happen. So I'm happy we could do it by Zoom. And it was suggested that I speak about Vrindavan lila, or the temples of Vrindavan. And I thought I could speak about not specific leelas, but lila in general, and how those leelas work and how they benefit us. And I wanted to begin by reading something very interesting that Prabhupada said. I don't know if you're all aware of this, but this is from the Krishna book. I wanted to discuss this a little bit. The transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna are so powerful that simply by hearing, reading, and memorizing this book, Krishna, one is sure to be transferred to the spiritual world. The descriptions of Lord Krishna are so attractive that it automatically gives us an impetus to study repeatedly. And the more we study the pastimes of the Lord, the more we become attached to him. This very attachment makes one eligible to be transferred to Krishna's abode, Goloka Vrindavan. So Prabhupada is succinctly and clearly explaining really the essence of why Krishna comes. He doesn't have to come, and he comes for us. So, sometimes it's said he likes to fight. There's nobody to fight in the spiritual world. He comes. That's true. But specifically, Krishna comes to perform pastimes so that we have something to remember, we have something to hear, and we have something to speak about. Many of us like to teach. Many of us like to hear. Many of us like to write. Many of us like to sing. Many of us like to paint. Many of us like to write poetry. So Krishna comes, performs his lila, and he says, basically, which is saying, oh, you like to speak? You can speak about this. You like to hear? You can hear about this. You like to write poetry? You can write poetry about this. You like to write? You can rewrite these stories. You like to paint? You can paint these pastimes. So it gives us an opportunity to be absorbed. One time, Prabhupada visited the Los Angeles temple. And when he visited the temple at that time, the BBT had moved there, the art department had moved there. And the Golden Avatar, which was the devotees who recorded all of Prabhupada's lectures and recorded most of the recordings of Prabhupada's bhajans, they were there. There was something called Fate, which was called the first American theistic exhibition. They were producing dolls, dioramas. There's a diorama museum in Los Angeles. There's another one in Detroit. Prabhupada actually wanted them in all the temples, so they were producing them. They were there. Of course, the normal LA temple was there with all its activities. And there was also this company called Spiritual Sky Incense. They were there. So Prabhupada went to visit each department, went to the BBT, saw the warehouse, went to the production area of the BBT, saw the artist, saw the layout. He went to Spiritual Sky Incense, saw what they were doing. He went to Golden Avatar Studios, saw what they were doing. He went everywhere. One of my godbrothers told me what Prabhupada had said. He said, after he went to all the departments, he said, sing for Krishna, write books for Krishna, paint for Krishna, sell books for Krishna, make money for Krishna. In other words, each department he went to, he described what they were doing, and he said, you could, in other words, you can do this, do this, do this, do this. And then he said, whatever you do, just be absorbed in Krishna. So he wasn't distinguishing one is better than the other. But whatever you do, be absorbed in Krishna. You sing for Krishna, write for Krishna, sell for Krishna, make money for Krishna, paint for Krishna, produce books for Krishna, manage for Krishna, whatever you do. So that was the idea. And then I had written a letter to Prabhupada because I was confused. What's the essential point of Krishna consciousness? Is it to do a lot of service, or is it to be Krishna conscious? And then I thought, if you're doing lots of service, you have so much on your mind. You're not absorbed in lila. You're not absorbed in Krishna consciousness. You're just thinking about, I have to do this, I have to do that, organize this, organize that, get this done, get that done. So I was confused because there was so much emphasis on spreading Krishna consciousness, opening temples, distributing books. That was the emphasis on everything we were doing. More temples, more books, more Sankirtan parties. And I wrote Prabhupada. I said, I'm confused. It seems to me that if I'm managing I don't think of Krishna so much. I didn't like managing. That was probably part of the problem. And so I said, if I just do traveling Sankirtan, if I'm just preaching, I'm spending more time hearing and chanting, maybe less service, I can think of Krishna more. So what should I do? What's better? And then the first line of his answer was, the whole point of everything is to be absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So it was very clear that that's the goal of Krishna consciousness. And he didn't say that I should minimize my service, but he gave me instructions on how I could be more Krishna conscious in what I'm doing. And he basically explained humility. He said, just think that you're incapable without Krishna's mercy, and always pray for his mercy. And by always praying for his mercy, you'll always be thinking of him. So that was in 1970, sometime in late 1970, I got that instruction. It clarified everything. And of course, if you go to Nectar Devotion, you'll get that same answer. But I wanted, something else I wanted to read to a sequel to this. And let me see if I can find it. Otherwise, I'll just explain it. Just excuse me for 1 second. Anyway, there's a statement. I can't find it right now, but I'm well aware what Prabhupada says. This is what I was leading up to present this one point, which is very interesting. So Prabhupada explains, as you've all heard, first there's Nama, the name, then there's Rupa, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, that they manifest. First you begin chanting, and then as you advance more, you can meditate on Krishna's form, and then Krishna's qualities, and then Krishna's Lila. And what that means is that the Nam, Rup, Guna, Lila, it's present in Krishna's name, because Krishna is present in his name. And how can you have Krishna without his form, without his qualities, without his pastimes? That wouldn't make sense, because as soon as you have a person, then all of that is part of that person. So Prabhupada said, when we chant Hare Krishna, we should be thinking of these things. He said, that's the goal. That's what's supposed to be going on. And now we have heard, well, when you chant Hare Krishna, you're just supposed to chant and hear the holy name. And now here Prabhupada is saying, no, actually you're supposed to meditate on Krishna Lila while you chant. But then Prabhupada went on to say, understanding that in a neophyte stage, before one is sufficiently purified, it may be difficult to fix the mind on Krishna Lila, and it may not come up when one is chanting. So then Prabhupada said, well, if you can't think of the Lila, then listen. So just hear. So hearing was kind of like a preliminary stage for those who couldn't be absorbed in Lila, but the goal was to be absorbed in the Lila. Interesting, right? Then elsewhere it's explained that when the advanced devotee chants, he sees the Lila, because, as I said, the Lila is present in the name. It's there. So in a more purified state, he sees it. But then there's another stage where he doesn't see the Lila, he enters the Lila, he becomes part of the Lila. So in one stage, you're watching the movie. In another stage, you are acting in the movie. You're no longer watching it, you're part of it. And Prabhupada explained, he said, that's why sometimes when a devotee is chanting, you will see him crying. A devotee is chanting, you will see him laughing. Because he's crying because he's seeing the Leela and Krishna is leaving. And he's laughing because he's seeing the Leela and Krishna is coming and Krishna is doing something funny. So another time, Prabhupada was asked, should we think of the Leela of Krishna? Sometimes this question comes up. Should I just chant or should I think of the Leela? And this was being asked by very young devotees who naturally didn't even, at least when I joined, we didn't have Krishna book when I joined. So we this is funny to think about this. We're talking about We're talking about hearing the lila. And when I joined, we didn't have Krishna book. We didn't even know the lila. We hardly knew any. We knew a few things because Prabhupada told them, but we didn't know much. It's interesting, right? So anyway, Krishna book came out August of 1970, and that was when we really, the first time we got to hear all the leelas in the 10th canto. And so then that question came up. Should we be thinking of the leelas? And Prabhupada said, yes, but. And the but was that you shouldn't force yourself artificially, like if it's not natural. Because Prabhupada was saying, as we said before, the Leela is there in the holy name, so it would be natural to hear, to think of it. But before one is that elevated in Krishna consciousness, where they're always thinking of the Leela while they're chanting, and Prabhupada said, you hear the holy name, and then as it becomes natural, as you naturally start thinking of the Leelas of Krishna, then naturally that's wanted or desirable. Now, one of the benefits that many devotees have told me that they find amongst, of course, there are many benefits of hearing about Krishna Lila, but one of the benefits that they find is that they say that when they're hearing more about Krishna's pastimes, their japa gets better. Their chanting improves. They're more absorbed. So I think that's significant because everyone's always asking, how can I improve my japa? And this is one of the easiest ways, and maybe a way which is obvious, but sometimes things which are obvious, we don't do. They're not obvious for strange reasons. It's the way the world is. Obvious things are not always obvious. So this is one of the obvious things that we can do to improve our chanting, absorb our mind. So we know the big problem is absorbing the mind, and there's so much to absorb the mind in: politics, sports, gramya katha, gossip, criticism, the news, all these things that are going on, the horrible things that are going on in the world. They're so, like, for example, now in our country, our president is denying that he lost the election. And it's occupying everyone's mind. Like, what's he going to do? Are they going to have to, like, get the police and pull him out of the White House on January 20th? And he's trying, he's doing things which are basically illegal now. He's trying to do like a coup of the government. This has never happened in America. And he's trying to influence people who make decisions about the election to say that the election was not run properly. And it's very easy to be absorbed because the country is quite unstable now, because we don't, I mean, we know that he can't do this, but he's doing it anyway, or he's trying. And he's hiring and firing, and anyone who doesn't support him in his attempt to rebuke this election, rebuke it, then he just fires them. He only hires people who can help him trying to turn the election around, which he lost. He lost by a large margin. And so it's very easy to be absorbed in that, because it's all around you. And every day he's doing some other thing. And it's like, what's he doing now? Who's supporting him? Who's against him? So that's the nature of this world. And so Krishna comes, he performs his lila, and basically his lila is, he's saying in his lila, you don't have to meditate on Donald Trump. You could meditate on me. Because if you meditate on Donald Trump, it's really of no benefit to you. And it might really disturb you as well. But if you meditate on me, that's your perfection. So Krishna comes, he does his lila, which is basically saying, look, this is what goes on in the spiritual world. And this is way better than what you're doing. It's way better than what any sports team, any politician is doing. It's way better than what's on the news. And all you have to do is hear. And Prabhupada used to say, this verse, Shrutikatan Tanavan Manobir, he said, you have 2 ears. All you have to do is listen. It's so easy. And still, we have this challenge that our ears want to hear all kinds of rubbish. And because of social media, the rubbish is so accessible. One time, I was in I think it was in Bhagavatam class, and Prabhupada was talking about hearing. This, you don't have to do anything. You have 2 ears. All you have to do is sit and listen. And he said, at least while you're sitting in Bhagavatam class, you're in the mode of goodness. You just by being here and listening, it automatically elevates you to the mode of goodness. At least the mode of goodness, if not beyond transcendental. And one time, Prabhupada was joking because during Prabhupada's time, so many of us really weren't getting enough rest. And we would make up for our rest when we would sit down in Bhagavatam class. And it was very difficult. Because we hadn't gotten enough rest, it was very difficult to stay awake sometimes, even in Prabhupada's presence, which is hard. It's kind of probably hard for you to imagine that we could fall asleep in Prabhupada's presence, but we were very tired sometimes, and we would. And one time, Brahmananda had said, he asked Prabhupada, what is the qualification of a Brahmin? And of course, Prabhupada was used to seeing devotees falling asleep. And sometimes devotee would stand up, and you could even sometimes see them kind of falling asleep, standing up like that. They were standing up, and we were so tired. And so Prabhupada joked, he said, a Brahmin is one who can keep his eyes open during Bhagavatam class. So that's kind of funny, because if you just keep your eyes open in here, then you'll be promoted to Sattva Guna automatically. So then you're a Brahmin because you're in Sattva Guna. So all you have to do is hear. So this is the point Prabhupada stressed over and over again. You have 2 ears, Shrutikatan Tanavan Manobir, whatever position you're in, just hear. You don't have to change your position, just listen. So Prabhupada stressed it over and over again. Hear, just hear. And that's why he established classes, morning, evening classes. So we constantly hear, which we later called the ISKCON sandwich. Morning and evening, you hear. So one time Prabhupada said, 9 to 5 are business hours. And he meant 9 to 5 you do service. And then morning is hearing and chanting, evening is hearing and chanting. And in the daytime you do service, or in the case of most devotees now in congregation, that's when they go to work, and probably not 9 to 5, probably longer. But that was the idea. And so Prabhupada stressed this. So this will sound funny to you, but growing up in America, I grew up in Jewish religion. I don't think growing up Jewish or Muslim or Christian was would be much different when it came to understanding Krishna. So as I mentioned, the Prabhupada came out with his Krishna book in August of 1970, and that was the first time. Most of what was in Krishna book we hadn't heard. We only heard a few pastimes that Prabhupada told in lectures. So most of what was in the Krishna book was new to us. We actually didn't know who Krishna was. Now, a lot of you are Indians, and you grew up watching videos, movies of Krishna Lila, cartoons of Krishna Lila, your grandmother's telling you Krishna Lila. We didn't grow up like that. Our concept of God was extremely vague. If there was any concept, I didn't have a concept of God. I can't even say it was vague. It was beyond vague. It was basically oblivious. So then I read the Krishna book and I got excited, and I was temple president then. And the temple president had to write a letter to Prabhupada every day. Not every day, no, excuse me. Every month you had to make a report. This was like before the GBC. You would make a report to Prabhupada. So many books sold, so many people joined. This is what happened at the Sunday feast, whatever you were doing, you would write Prabhupada. What an honor, I hated being temple president. It was so difficult. It wasn't my nature. I'm saying everyone hates it. It was hard for me, but that was the reward. I would write Prabhupada a letter every month. And so because I was making a report, then I would also like tell him something or ask a question. And at that point, I had just read the Krishna book and I had this revelation, which I don't know, to you, it may sound like that wasn't a revelation. That wasn't a big deal. But for me, it was a big deal because I had no idea who God was, not the vaguest idea of anything, form, or it was never explained in Judaism. No one explains, what does God look like? What does he do? And well, in Christianity, they have a picture of God as an old man and he's got gray hair and wrinkles. So that's like the best they could do. And so then here is this young, beautiful boy doing all these things, unimaginable things. And I wrote Prabhupada like with this excitement of this little kid who just had this huge revelation, which was like not really a huge revelation, but for me, it was a huge revelation. I said, Prabhupada, I read the Krishna book and I just had this revelation, this realization, and nobody knows who God is. It was like, oh my Govinda, I'm now 20 years old. I spent 20 years of my life. And I just realized after reading Krishna book that no one has any idea who God is. Of course, the Hindus have an idea. And of course, many of them misunderstand also. Shiva, Durga, Ganesh, Brahma, Vishnu, they're mixed up. But it's not so amorphous for them. Some idea of a God. Of course, the impersonalists, they don't know. So I was so excited. I said, it's like, Prabhupada, nobody knows who God is. It's amazing. And so Prabhupada wrote, yes. Prabhupada, of course, he already knew that. But to me, after reading Krishna book, it was this huge revelation. Prabhupada said, yes. We are the only ones who are teaching them what is God. And so, and if you read the introduction to Krishna book, Prabhupada's like, give this book to everyone. Everyone can read this. Even if you just think they're stories, just read it. So we were going out and distributing Krishna books to people who had no idea who is God, who is Krishna, what is bhakti, just people on the street. And they were buying Krishna book and they were reading it. Some of them didn't really understand it, but there was something special. When they read it, they were feeling something special. They were getting purified. And of course, many of those people became devotees. So, I'm giving a lot of classes these days. So, excuse me. I need to take something to help my throat. So I wanted to read something else. What time? How long are we going? I didn't make a note of.
Prabhuji, we have till 12:30, so another 1 hour, and
Okay.
maybe have Q&A about 45 minutes.
Okay, we'll see how it goes.
Thank you.
You can ask questions now if you want. I don't mind breaking it up with questions. You can put them in the chat. Sometimes what happens is you ask a question at the end of the class and it was regarding something that I spoke of like 30 minutes earlier, and I actually forget the context. So sometimes questions are better within the context. I don't mind if something comes. So this is interesting. This is from the Bhagavatam. It's quoting Bhakti Siddhanta. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you have a lot of Bengalis in Birmingham, or
Yes,
some?
yes, Prabhu. We have a mixture of Bengali, Gujarati, South Indian, and some Punjabis as well.
Okay, so I spent many years in Mayapur, so I will read this like a Bengali. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. What was that for a Bengali accent? Good? And then Lord Krishna, it's not Lord Krishna, it's Lord Krsna. Lord Krsna first gives a sincere devotee Lord Krishna first gives a sincere devotee the opportunity to hear about his pastimes. When the devotee has advanced in his spontaneous attraction to such narrations, Krishna gives him the opportunity to take part in his pastimes as they appear within this world. By taking part in the pastimes of Lord Krishna within a particular universe, the living being becomes completely detached from the material world, and ultimately, Lord Krishna brings him to his personal abode in the spiritual world. So we all understand this principle that when we rise to the level of bhava, when we leave our body in Krishna consciousness, if we are sufficiently pure, we take birth in the womb of a gopi in Boma, Vrindavan, and we engage in the pastimes that we were hearing about. Now we get to engage in them, and we become trained and purified, and we come to the level of prema. And I just want to explain this a little bit because it's interesting how this works. You may know that Krishna descended with his associates, but it's not that everyone in Vrindavan was his eternal associate. Many of them were getting ready, becoming purified, coming from their last life as a devotee in the material world, coming into Krishna Lila. So we remember the story of the gopis when Krishna played his flute and the gopis went to the rasa dance. But some gopis couldn't go because their husbands held them back. No, you cannot go. This is wrong. This is immoral. And they were feeling so much pain, so much separation, that what happened was it drained them of all the existing impurities that were within them by meditating on Krishna and feeling that separation. So that when you look at the story externally, you think, well, that's not fair. Their husbands shouldn't have stopped them. Their husbands actually should have let them go. No husband should stop his wife from serving Krishna. If Krishna is calling, no husband should stop his wife going to the temple, doing seva. So this is wrong. These husbands, they're bad. No, it's not like that at all. Their husbands are actually devotees. And by the influence of Yoga Maya, those gopis were not yet completely purified. And so they weren't actually qualified to enter the rasa dance. And so by the influence of Yoga Maya, their husbands prevented them. But what happened is that by being prevented, now they were just thinking of Krishna. We're not there, we want to be there. And in that meditation, it said that they gave up, it said they gave up their bodies, they didn't die, they gave up the contamination of the subtle body, and it became purified. And so next time, Krishna does, we always think Rasa Leela's in autumn, short season, but he does every night. That's what he does. He's got a schedule. That's on his evening schedule, Rasa Leela, every night. He could change the schedule if he wants, but that's the general schedule. He goes, sneaks out in the evening and stays out till from 11 or 12 till 6 a.m. Then he sneaks back and pretends like he was sleeping all night, but he was actually out having fun and taking rest out there. So this is an example that you absorb yourself in the lila here, and then you become qualified to enter the lila on the earth. And then when you enter that lila, then whatever impurity is there, it gets worked out within that lila, and then you become qualified to go back to God. That's the system. And the natural, interesting question is, well, is what goes on here, does that go on in the spiritual world? Am I seeing just a representation of those leelas here that go on there? And the answer is yes and no. Because there, Krishna is always a young boy, but here he grows up. So you don't have those growing up leelas. There, There's no one to fight with. There's nobody antagonistic to Krishna. And here there is. And, Krishna, he fights with them here. But actually, it's not even Krishna who's fighting, it's Vishnu. And so you see this little baby, this little boy, and he's fighting with some demon. It's actually Vishnu is manifested now through that little boy. And it's just that Vishnu is doing all the killing. Not, like when Krishna sucked out the life breath, the life airs of Putana. It was Vishnu who did that. He wasn't even aware what was going on. He was just, a little boy playing, and then Vishnu comes and does it. So that's how that works. So that's not going on in the spiritual world. But we would say, in general, yes, Krishna has a schedule. And so that's the general schedule he has here and he has there. When he gets up, what he does, milks the cows, eats breakfast, takes out the cows, goes to Radha Kund like 10:30, 11, stays there till like 3 or 4, then meets the cowherd boys, comes back home, you know, milks the cows, takes bath, has dinner, pretends that, and then in the evening there's entertainment. Nanda Maharaj's palace, he gets to see some kind of entertainment every evening. Then he fakes going to bed. Then he gets up and sneaks out. Then he does Ras Lila. Then he takes rest out there. Then he comes back at 6. Then this, it's like he comes back at like 5:59 and 59 seconds, and his mother wakes him up at 6 o'clock on the dot, something like that. Then he wakes up and, okay, gets himself together, milks the cows, takes breakfast, and like that. Now, what's interesting is sometimes Prabhupada said, when you're asked, does Krishna, in the spiritual world, are there demons and does Krishna kill any? And Prabhupada once said, well, there's rumors of demons. And what did he mean by that? Well, there's one pastime I read, you may have heard this, it's quite interesting. In the spiritual world, not on this planet, we know on this planet, Krishna went from Vrindavan to Mathura and took care of Kamsa and the wrestlers, and it was all good fun for him, but he had to take care of Kamsa. Kamsa was disturbing things. So he went there and killed Kamsa, defeated the wrestlers. So in the spiritual world, Yoga Maya creates a Kamsa, like a temporary Kamsa. Krishna leaves Vrindavan, goes to Mathura, kills Kamsa, and comes back, like this illusory Kamsa created by Yoga Maya. So when Prabhupada says there's rumors, it's like, okay, we heard Krishna went to Mathura and he killed Kamsa, but if you go to Mathura, there's no Kamsa there. But Yogamaya manifested a Kamsa, so he could kill. So sometimes you see that going on. But generally, because there's no demons in the spiritual world, you're not going to have those leelas. And because Krishna doesn't grow up, you're not going to have the leela, which I was just talking with my wife the other day. I was meditating on this. I said, it's almost like it was worth taking birth here, because now we're privy to all these leelas. And then when we take birth in Boma Vrindavan, we will be engaged with those leelas. And it said those childhood leelas are some of the sweetest leelas. And now we're absorbed in the month of Damodar, meditating on Krishna, his leela as Damodar, which doesn't take place in the spiritual world. Isn't that, it's interesting. So it's almost like, it's like a privilege that we're here, and these things are in Bhagavatam. All these things that Krishna doesn't do in the spiritual world, he does here because he's growing up. And how Mother Yasoda gets to interact with Krishna at that age. She doesn't interact with him in that way there because he's not that age. So, if you ever feel bad that you've come to this world, then this is kind of like the remedial medicine, and say, well, it was bad that I left Krishna, but at least now I have access to Krishna Lila. And I think that's a great impetus to hear about Krishna's pastimes, to be more absorbed in them, particularly the ones that happen here, because we have the privilege to hear them and get absorbed in them. So I think the point is clear that what's going on in the spiritual world, Krishna is manifesting more or less here. And I think one of the challenges that often we have being within the temporary world is this world seems so real, doesn't it? It's like, my name is so and so. This is my job. I live in such and such a place. This is my wife. This is my daughter. This is my son. This is my father. It's my uncle. It's my mother, my grandmother. It all seems so real, like all of that we're just surrounded by this identity. And it has nothing to do with us. We have an eternal identity existing within Krishna Lila that's waiting for us. But due to our conditioning, that position in Krishna Lila seems like something really distant and foreign, where our Lila here and our identity here is what we're used to, and it seems so real. And the reality is Krishna Lila. That's Sat. This is Asat. It's not real. So that's the challenge, we could say, that to enter into that Lila, that Krishna Lila, and realize this is real. One time we were, it was funny, we were on Vrindavan Prikrama, and we were driving to a village. I'm not sure which village we were driving to. Maybe we were going to Varshan, not or Varshan, or Yabat. I think we're going to Yabat. And so we were driving down the road and we're going through a village, and some women were making cow dung patties, blah, 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 like that, making them, like then putting them on a wall. And there was a lot of traffic, so we're going very slowly. And the devotee that was taking us on Purkram, he said, oh, look at the gopis. They're making cow dung patties. This is what you're going to be doing in the spirit. Look, check it out, because this is what you're going to be doing in the spiritual world. So, if you went up to somebody and said, why don't you join the Hare Krishna movement? You'll get eternal life. And they ask you, well, what do I do when I have eternal life? And you say, well, you follow the cows, and when they lay their cow dung on the ground, you pick it up and you slap it into patties and you put it on the wall. And that's what you're going to be doing eternally. And what do you think people would say? They go, that's what your religion teaches? I want nothing to do with it. So it's, because we have this material conception of Krishna Lila, if you're making cow dung patties eternally so Mother Yasoda can cook for Krishna, you will be eternally ecstatic and every day becoming more ecstatic. But we see things materially. So this is the challenge. We're so conditioned to this world, and that world is real, but this world feels real, and that world is like, oh, I don't know that world. I haven't been there. It seems strange, like the laws of nature work differently there. So that's the problem. If you study this problem from a philosophical or shastric point of view, then you understand what's happening is Yogamaya is revealing the Lila, revealing the Dham, and Mahamaya is covering the Lila and covering the Dham. So the more we're covered by Mahamaya, the more these Leelas seem like, I don't know, making cow patties for eternity. I'm not sure, maybe staying here and, working for the government, and living in a 2-bedroom flat is better than that, even if I have to take another body. So that's Maya. That's Maya's, one of her potencies is covering. And so Yoga Maya reveals the Dham, and reveals the Lila, so you can see it as it is and also become attracted to it. And Maya's job is to cover it. And when you talk about Maya's job of covering, one reaction may be, why would Krishna allow us to be covered when he has the Yogamaya energy, which is uncovering, which is revealing him? Doesn't he want us to be under the control of Yogamaya? And the answer is yes. So if the answer is yes, then the next question is, well, if that's true, why did he create Mahamaya? And the answer is because for those who don't want Yogamaya, they get Mahamaya. So when we're being covered by Maya, it's not arbitrary. It's not that Krishna is just saying, I don't like you and I like you. So you get Yogamaya, you get Mahamaya. I don't know, you're too short. I don't like short people. So you get Mahamaya. It's not like that. It's because the living entity wants it. We want to identify with this world. We want to be part of it. We don't want to be absorbed in Krishna Lila. We don't want to study it. We don't want to understand it. We just see it as like, oh, that's weird. I don't know if I can believe that. Or even something like, well, I believe it and I'd like to be there, but I'm not qualified. And so then Maya takes up on these clues, these hints we give Maya, and she says, okay, so I'll just make you think this world is real, and you can, just you can put Krishna book on the shelf and don't worry about it. You don't need to read it. Just read about Donald Trump. That's good enough for you. And so that's what Maya does. And so as we desire, Maya comes and covers us. So why does she cover us? Because ultimately we want to be covered. Why do we want to be covered? Because if you're trying to be God, then why do you want to hear about God? You don't want to hear about God. You want to hear about how you can become God. So then Maya will say, okay, well, if you want to hear about how you can become God, then I'll just cover you. So you won't understand Krishna Lila at all. Now, Janma karma chame devyam evam yobeti tattataha takta deha punarjanma naiti mamiti. So Arjuna. So Krishna is saying, if you understand my Lila tattva in truth, then you go back to Godhead. And I would say, if you understand Krishna Lila in truth, you're already back to Godhead. And you can't understand Krishna Lila in truth if you're not Krishna conscious, if you're not pure enough. So it works all the way around. And unless we do austerity, unless we do sadhana well, unless we hear and chant well, we won't understand Krishna Lila properly. And if we don't understand Krishna Lila properly means tattva, in truth, as it actually is, in reality, then Krishna is saying, how are you going to go back to Godhead? Because you're so much comfortable in this world and so much identified with this world. And that Lila is just, you don't relate to it. It's far off. It's not relevant in some sense, not relevant to your life. You're not hearing about it. You're hearing other things. Social media is more interesting. Then we're in trouble. So when we think that way, Maya just comes and reinforces all of that. And that's the problem with Maya. She'll reinforce whatever is missing in your Krishna consciousness, whatever lacking, whatever doubt is there, whatever material perception you have, she'll reinforce it. And so she just makes everything worse. And you might say it's not fair, but she's only just reciprocating with your lack of faith or your lack of interest or your doubt or whatever it is you want to get. She just picks up on that and says, oh, you're more interested in hearing about politics and sports? Oh, okay. I'll make sure you get addicted to it. And so you can't stop reading about it and listening to it. And that will absorb you instead of you being absorbed in Krishna Lila. And if you're absorbed in the Leelas of this world, where do you think you take birth in your next life? Not in Boma Vrindavan. You take birth in this world. I had a godbrother, he once said something I really liked. He said, speaking about Krishna Lila, that's the language of the spiritual world. And gossip is the language of the material world. Gramya, we call it Gramya Kata, village talk. Who got married? Who got divorced? Well, I guess in those villages, nobody got divorced. But whose marriage is bad? Whose marriage is good? Who had a child? Who has left their body? Who did something scandalous? So, they had their own scandalous newspaper, so to speak, but it was just word of mouth. So he was saying, so such a simple point. He was saying, if you speak the language of the material world, which is gossip, which is criticism, which is devoid of the philosophy and lila of Krishna consciousness, if you speak that language, where do you think you're going to take birth in your next life? You're going to take birth on the planet where that language is spoken. And that's the material world, the planet and the material world. That's what's spoken. Turn on social media, turn on the news. What's going on? Glorification of Krishna? No, unfortunately. Well, in India, you turn on the TV, you will get some katha. and you'll get some, religious kata here and there, but predominantly, at least in the West, it's village, what we call village talk. You speak that language, where do you take birth? And conversely, you speak the language of Krishna Lila, Krishna philosophy, where are you going to take birth? You're going to take birth in the place that people speak that. You criticize devotees, where are you going to take birth? You're going to take birth on the planet where people criticize. You glorify devotees, you're going to take birth on the planet where devotees are glorified. So it's what we absorb ourselves in, which is going to determine where we go. And that decision is not Maya's decision. Don't ever blame Maya. It's our decision. And she is just reciprocating. Just as just as Krishna reciprocates, Maya also has that verse. Yetamam prapadyate is also Maya's verse. As you surrender to me, I will reward you with illusion. And then, Bhagavatam explains something which is quite interesting. Like why would she create illusion? Like, why do we need illusion? Because we want illusion. Because the truth is, I'm servant. And so how many people in this world want to be servants of God? Maybe you can count them on your right hand. Nobody wants to be a servant of God. Everyone wants to be a master. And if you don't have some illusion, you can't think that you're a master, because you're not. So there has to be an illusion to believe you're the master, that you can control things that you can't, that you can enjoy things, that things are meant for your enjoyment, but you can't really enjoy them. There has to be some illusion. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. If you saw the sat, the truth, you would just surrender to Krishna and say, this trying to be independent of Krishna is completely ridiculous. And you would engage in Krishna's consciousness. So because we want the asat, then Maya says, okay, well, I have to completely cover you so you totally forget that you're spirit soul. You totally forget God and your connection with him. You totally forget everything spiritual. And now, in that consciousness of forgetfulness, you can fully be absorbed in material life. Otherwise, it's like we see this. This is such a common thing in Krishna consciousness. Somebody comes and they're new. They hear the philosophy. I don't know if this happens to you as Indians, but it definitely happens quite often to Westerners. I think sometimes also it must have happened to many of you. You start becoming Krishna conscious. You start hearing the philosophy, what is real, what is false. And there's a period that many new people go through in Krishna consciousness where they don't want to do anything other than devotional service. They want to quit their jobs. They just sometimes don't even want to take care of their kids. They just want to be at the temple. Of course, that's extreme. They just want to do service. Because why? Because now they've been enlightened. They actually see things as they are. And when you see things as they are, what do you want to do? You want to serve. Whereas before, they were covered. And so they had no desire to serve. They didn't know anything about Krishna. And that all gets uncovered. They want to serve. So for those who don't want to serve, Maya has to keep them covered, because if they know who is Krishna and they know their spirit soul, they're not going to want to imitate Krishna. They're going to want to serve him, but it's not what they want. So Maya is just reciprocating. So Maya is saying, oh, you don't want to serve Krishna? Well, I will make sure you will never understand him. I will make sure you never understand that you're spirit soul. And even if you are told you're spirit soul, you're not this body, I will make sure you don't even understand what that means. I will make sure you'll concoct some meaning. I will make sure you'll listen to a guru who has no idea what that means, other than you should just enjoy in the name of spirituality. I will in some way misdirect you because that's what you want. And like we often say, if you're not sincere, you're not honest, you'll get a guru who's not sincere and honest. You get the guru you deserve. So that's just Maya saying, why would I direct you to a real guru when you don't want real spiritual life? I'll just keep you covered. So you think you have spiritual life and you're still in this mood of I'm the enjoyer controller. And I'm not going to pop your bubble of illusion because you don't want it. So my job is to give you what you want, which is illusion. And that way you can keep thinking that you can enjoy independent of God. You don't need God, or create some crazy idea of God and religion. and the name of God and religion, just use that to enjoy. That's all Maya's work. And it's like you read in the Gita, there's religion in three modes of nature. And you think, oh, religion, it must all be pure. And Krishna's saying, no, you can have religion in ignorance. So you have God, but everything is so perverted. It's like you make yourself like God in the name of religion. And Maya's just saying, I don't want to do this to you. I would rather help you become Krishna conscious. And hopefully someday by me doing this to you, you will be. But for now, you don't want to be Krishna conscious. And my job is just, ye tamam prabhajante. What you want, I will give you it. And this is why we can never blame Maya. Sometimes we blame, Maya's so strong. I'm just an innocent victim of Maya. Nobody's an innocent victim of Maya. Maya is just reciprocating with what we want. So that's the idea. I wanted to read something else, and then we can take some questions. Yeah. In the Vrindavan manifested in this material world, the associates of Krishna are mainly conditioned souls being promoted to the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Thus promoted, they are first allowed to see Krishna on the material planet where Krishna's lila is being enacted. Afterwards, they are promoted to Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world. That's from a lecture by Srila Prabhupada. And from the Madhya Lila 20, verse 397, after leaving the material body, the perfect devotee takes birth in the womb of a gopi on a planet where Krishna's pastimes are going on. This may be in this universe or another universe. So there's something called Astakaliya Lila, in which a devotee meditates on Krishna's pastimes at different parts of the day. And so that is one of the ways that's recommended, at least at some stage of bhakti, that you can remember Krishna. Just like if I ask you, Anantacharya, what is Krishna doing now? Well, you're 5 hours later than I am. So right now, Krishna's in Radhakund. But where I am, Krishna is just, he's milking the cows, basically. But you can think like that. You can study, well, what is Krishna doing at different times of day? And as you're going through your day, I'm driving to work and you're thinking, okay, what is Krishna doing now? Oh, now he's milking cows, or it's about 8 o'clock, he's having breakfast. Okay, you get to your office about 9 o'clock. Like, oh, what's Krishna doing now? Oh, he's out with the cows now. And then you go for a lunch break. And you think, oh, what's Krishna doing now? It's my lunchtime. Oh, he's at Radhakund with all the gopis. And at Radhakund, Radhakund is interesting because it's the place where Krishna can freely mingle with the gopis. It's just for the gopis. And although sometimes devotees and other rasas go there, they rarely go there. It doesn't work because that's the rasa for Madhurya. So, oh, where's Krishna? It's noontime. Where is he doing? Oh, he's with the gopis. This is highest lila with the gopis. And that goes on to like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Now what's Krishna doing? Oh, that picture. Krishna's coming back with the cows. You've seen that picture, and it's described in the Krishna book. The gopis I think gopis are describing it. The dust from the cows is coming up and the sun is setting and Krishna's playing his flute and they're coming back. I think that's when Gop Kumar entered the spiritual world and he met Krishna coming back. So that Krishna comes back in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock. Then he comes home and milks the cows, gets dressed. Radharani is home. She's cooking sweets and things. She brings them over. Krishna eats. Then after he eats, he goes in for entertainment, goes to sleep, and then he goes out for Ras Leela. Comes back, as we were saying, and his mother wakes him up right after he comes back, 6 o'clock, and then gets ready. And so this Astakala Lila is something you could begin practicing if you wanted. Just, as you go through your day, you could think, oh, what's Krishna doing now? We're trying to condition ourselves to that way of thinking. We're trying to prepare ourselves to enter into Krishna Lila and decondition ourselves from material thinking and absorption in Lila. Now, one of the things that's so unfortunate, which I teach in Japa, is this, devotees always say, it's difficult to control my mind. So what are we thinking of when we're chanting japa? Well, we're usually thinking about what we have to do or what we're worried about. And it's so ironic if within Krishna's name is his lila and we're thinking about what we have to do. That's strange, isn't it? I'm chanting Hare Krishna. Namarupa Guna Lila, Krishna's lila is in his name. Prabhupada saying I should be Prabhupada saying I should be thinking of Krishna lila, and I'm thinking of my lila, Mahatma lila. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, what do I have to do today? Oh, I'm so busy. I have to do this and that. Or I'm thinking about something that's bothering me. I just had a fight with my wife. I feel horrible. How could she say that? Or I said the wrong thing. I feel so bad. I shouldn't have said that. Hare Krishna, Hare. You know, I'm completely in my lila. And what a paradox that is. When, as Prabhupada wrote me, the whole point of everything is to think of Krishna. So I think this is significant. Okay, I'm going to read this. This is a letter. This is beautiful. It is not offensive to think of Krishna's pastimes while chanting. The devotee was saying, is it offensive? This is 1968. They didn't know. One must try for the point when he simply hears Krishna and immediately all of Krishna's pastimes, form, and qualities are in his thoughts. That's ideal. You say Krishna and it's all there. That's what we're working towards. So to be always immersed in the thoughts of Krishna, this is our process. So this is our duty to remember Krishna's pastimes. One who cannot remember Krishna, let him always hear Hare Krishna. And then when he has perfected this art, then always he'll remember Krishna, his activities, qualities. So again, as I began by saying, Prabhupada saying, well, if you can't hear Krishna's lila, then you can just chant Hare Krishna, and from that Krishna's lila will enter. So usually my experience is there's lots of questions and they go for a long time. And so we have like 27 minutes left. Why don't we just take questions now and we'll see where that takes us.
Sure. There's
And
some in the chat box, Prabhu, and the
okay.
questions start coming once we just get into a momentum of it. Then people start asking questions.
So you want to choose the questions or shall I just read them as they come?
Are you happy, Prabhu? There's some in the chat box. If you want me to read, I can read, or you can read. It's up to you.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll just read them and then we'll see. So, first question, why was this universe created by the Lord? What was the purpose behind it? I am in the middle of reading the first canto, but this question comes into my mind again and again. It is bothering me so much. Well, the easiest way to understand it is the example Prabhupada gave was why does the government create a prison? Because they're criminals. And why do pubs and other places have bouncers? They have to keep the wrong people out. So in the spiritual world, only pure devotees exist. Nobody else can go there because when you go back to Godhead, you don't want to find that there's a whole section of people who aren't Krishna conscious. Like, oh, I was trying to get away from those people. I want to go to a place where it's only devotees. So the spiritual world is protected. That is Krishna's personal place. So only devotees. So anyone who doesn't want to be a devotee, they're like criminals. So the material world is called Durga, prison house. Prison house is created, and so we can all go to the prison house. That's one explanation. But the deeper meaning ultimately is that this world is created to rectify us, rehabilitate us, recover. There's a movement called the recovery movement. You know, when you're addicted to something, you go through recovery. But what are you recovering? You're recovering the self that before you were addicted. That's what it means to be recovered, to go to recovery movements, to recover the self before you were addicted. Your like real self, so to speak. So the material world is the big recovery movement, to recover your spiritual identity. And so Krishna creates conditions in this world that will cause us to not be happy so that we don't want to stay here because we came here to stay here and enjoy. And so Krishna said, well, if I make this world too nice, you'll never want to go back to me. So I'm not going to make it so nice. And if we look around the world today, it's really gotten bad. And there's a devotee who told me things have gotten bad in America since Trump became president. At least they got bad for a lot of people, and a lot of people are very upset. And he said, I hope Trump wins again because things are so bad under Trump. More people are becoming devotees. He was totally serious. So Krishna creates the world to make it not perfect so that we don't want to be attached to this world and we want to get out. And as I was saying, if you like this world and you don't want to notice the misery, Maya will come and make you think that you're in la la land and there are no problems and you're going to live forever and happily ever after in paradise. That's what her job is. For those who want to think that way, she'll just make you think that way. And she'll also make you forget that you suffered and you'll do the same thing again that caused you suffering in the past because she'll cover you, or she'll make you think, try it again. Last time, maybe you just had bad luck, or maybe you did it wrong. Try it again. That marriage didn't work. Try it again. This partner didn't work. Try that one. You try to make £1,000,000 in this business, it didn't work. Try that one. That one didn't work. Try this one. Even though you're working 18 hours a day and killing yourself, you just keep going. You'll get there. And if you get that money, you'll be happy. And then you get the money, you're not happy. You said, well, the reason you're not happy is you need to move in a different neighborhood, and on and on and on. She'll keep us here forever if that's what we want. So that's why the world was created, and that's why it has that nature. So we're all criminals. It's embarrassing to say, but we're all criminals. That's why we're here. And Prabhupada is trying to get you out. Why did he create the universe and humans? What was the purpose behind it? Well, he didn't create humans because we're eternally part and parcel of him. So just like when you have the sun, you have the sunshine. But at the same time, he did create because he's the source. So you have this like eternal creation problem. You could call it a problem. But anyway, okay, well, for the sake of discussion, Krishna created us even though we're eternal. Think about that for a few million years and see if you can figure that out. And another reason that Prabhupada said Krishna created us is because Krishna created us to enjoy in relation to him. And Krishna likes to enjoy. And the more people Krishna creates that he can enjoy with, the better for him. So we exist for his enjoyment. And he created us for his enjoyment. And that's how we enjoy. So I think I answered the question about why the universe was created, this universe. But we exist for Krishna's enjoyment. That's why he created us. He wants to enjoy us. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, for every living entity that exists, there's a certain enjoyment that Krishna gets from that living entity. So there's a certain rasa that Krishna gets from you that he doesn't get from another devotee. It's like a different flavor of ice cream. There's unlimited flavors that Krishna can taste. And Krishna actually wants you. And it doesn't, we look at it and think, Krishna wants me? That's like crazy. That doesn't make sense. But he wants me. It's true. So, believe it or not, Krishna wants you in a relationship and he's waiting for it. And that's the only reason you're created. And so now we're here forgetting him. And Krishna is waiting for you, waiting for us. Like, when are you going to turn back? When are you going to turn around? You've turned your back on me. When are you going to turn around? I'm waiting for you. I want a relationship with you. I'm feeling some emptiness. And we're thinking, no, Krishna's self-satisfied and he's got unlimited Lakshmis, Sahasrasa, Chintamani, Pakarashadmansu, Kalpavriksha, Lakshabhiteshu, Surabhi, Ravi Pariyantam. Lakshmi Sahasrasa Shambhaman Sevyamanam. He's got hundreds of thousands of gopis. Why does he need me? Lakshmis. No, because there's something special in you that he wants to relish and he wants you to be happy. So that's why Krishna created us. And now we have to live up to the reason Krishna created us and reciprocate with his love. He's giving love and we're not reciprocating. And Krishna's saying, when are you going to reciprocate? I want you. I want you in a relationship. When are you going to stop running away from me? When are you going to start loving me, serving me, chanting me, and make me your life, and that relationship your life, instead of running after this and that? So that's why Krishna created us. And the whole universe is meant to facilitate that. And one purport Prabhupada said, everything in this universe is meant to get us back to Godhead, but it has to be taken that way. We don't always take it that way. So we can use everything in this universe to forget Krishna also, but its ultimate purpose is to get us back to Godhead. So we have a question. How do we always stay in the energy of Yoga Maya and avoid Mahamaya when we are not in association of devotees? For example, during working hours, it is boom, boom, boom. There's never a second to sit back and contemplate. Maybe you need another job. How to avoid high, um, your brain getting hijacked? I can't even pronounce that. How do you pronounce that? Amygdala? I forget how to pronounce it. The part of your brain. Yeah. It will happen as you become more Krishna conscious. So I think the best way to answer this question is what you do before work is going to be your protection. So the more Krishna conscious you are before work, the more Krishna conscious you will be at work. Even if that environment at work is not Krishna conscious, you will find that the better your japa, the more you study in the morning, the more you reflect on what you're studying. If there's time for puja or little puja, anything you can do in the morning, the more you can, the earlier you can get up, the more absorbed you can be. Then when you go out, you're going to find you're in a state of Krishna consciousness where all of a sudden you're at work, but you're able to see things in a more Krishna conscious way. You'll be less affected by that environment, by that association. Because you can't change that environment. All you can change is your approach to that environment and how you see it and how you see the people. I mean, Harini, is it Harini or Harini? One or the other. Harini Priya. Imagine you went to work and you were so Krishna conscious that you could see the super soul in every one of your associates there. So all day you're at work and every person walks by, every person you interact with, you see this little super soul in there. And if you're actually Krishna conscious, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, you won't see Paramatma, you'll see Sham Sundar. Yam Shama Sundaram Achinta Guna Swarupam. You'll see Shama Sundar. So let's take this to the next level. You're actually seeing Shama Sundar in the heart of everyone at work. How would you feel when you came home in the evening? You would be on cloud 9. Well, we would say you'd be on cloud Vaikuntha. So if you evolve your Krishna consciousness before you go to work, you may start seeing, maybe not visually, but looking at people and realizing Krishna's in their heart. They're not that body, they're spirit soul. And you have a little bit of a different vision of what's going on. And you see one coworker is getting angry and you think, yeah, that's the mode of passion. The mode of passion is affecting them. That's what's actually happening. So you're starting to see things in a philosophical way. So boom, 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 so much is going on. But now you have a different view of it because you've nurtured your Krishna consciousness in the morning. That's the best advice I can give, other than finding a working, figuring out how you can work from home. I always think the best job for devotees is something they can do at home. Consulting, online teaching, like that. And you could, work from home somehow or other. Would be so much better. That's the best I can offer for now. And I wrote an article. It's on my website. It said, turn your workplace into Vaikuntha. So if you go to my website, mahatmadas.com, there are many, many articles there. There's so many things that I think would be helpful or could be. And that's one of them. Turning your workplace into Vaikuntha. That was the name of the article. You can probably go on my website and just click on newsletters and look for that. So we have another question. Ishani and Prem Prakash Gore. Could you please help us understand how to improve our listening? Yeah, and also encourage our children to do so. Well, this is like a question which I could spend a long time answering. And I just remembered, actually, I have a class at 7:30. At 7:30, that means for you, that's 12:30. So that it means actually I have to leave, unfortunately. It's just the way things got booked up. Um, I didn't know this class was going to go for 7:30, and there's another session we're doing and starts at 7:30. So I'll need to end maybe in 10 minutes.
Prabhuji, we were hoping you do Damodar Ashtakam, which we were.
Okay.
So I mean, we could leave the question sessions for now, and maybe go straight on to Damodar Ashtakam, whatever you're happy with.
Can we do a short Damodar Ashtakam? I can answer a few more questions, like we just all sing the verses together rather than repeat them.
Sure. As long as we get Damodar Ashtakam, you can do any way you like.
Yeah, I think that we all sing. I'll just sing the verse once. We sing it together, and then
Fine. Yeah, and then maybe Nursing Arti singing once, that'd be fine as well. So I think
yeah.
that we need to sing it once.
Okay, I think we could do that. All right, let me just answer this question. So, one of the things that I think is so important for us to understand is that when we're reading something, especially philosophy, which is most of what we read in Prabhupada's books, or much of what we read is philosophy, even though we're reading lila, Prabhupada's explaining it philosophically. So, philosophy are our ideas, they're theories, they're concepts, and that is philosophy is understood through intelligence, through contemplation. But when we're hearing, if we just stop on the level of philosophy, we just, yes, I understood it, because that's the first stage of learning according to the Vedic learning process. The first stage is you have to understand what was actually being taught, what was being said. Oh, this was being said, A, B, C, D. This was being said. I understand it. But okay, you understand it theoretically. Now assimilate it. What would that mean? What does it actually mean on a more practical level? I'm assimilating that. So when you're reading and you're hearing, you always want to think, okay, I have to take it from the theoretical stage to a stage where what would that look like practically? Like if I say I should see every woman as a mother, okay, understand that. Now, what does that look like? And I think, okay, mother means respect, honor, service, protection, obedience. I'm dissecting, I'm assimilating it, right? And then the next stage is, well, if I were to respect my mother, practically, what would that look like? Because now it's gone from woman as mother to it means respect and protection and service and honoring and so forth. So I'm starting to assimilate that concept into something more practical. But then I have to look at, well, what would that actually look like if I was respecting my mother? How would my attitude change towards her? How would my dealing change? So you want to get the knowledge to the point where it starts to change your attitudes. How would, if I understood this, how would my attitudes change? How would I see things differently? So it's attitudes, seeing, how would I feel differently about my mother? How would I see her differently? What would my attitude be towards her? And what would my actions be? So that's how you break down knowledge into assimilation. Okay. So are you going to put the Damodar Ashtaka up? Is that the plan? And then I can see it, because although I know it, I could maybe sing it out, get it out of order or something. So do you want to put it up? Is that what you normally do? And then if anyone has questions I didn't answer that they want to ask me, then you can message me on Facebook, and then I can answer the question there. And I have so my Facebook page, Mahatma Das, my website, Mahatma Das, like that. So is that the plan? You're going to put up the Damodar Ashtaka? Is that the idea? Or you want me to find it?
It's on the chat.
It's on the chat. Okay.
In the chat box, probably.
Okay. So because I have to go, let's sing it all together. Of course, you're all muted, but you can sing with me.
That's
Okay?
fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Namami Sharan Sachit Ananda Rupam Nasakundalam Go Kule Brajamanam Jasodabhiyo Luka Ladavamanam Paramrishtam Manyantato Druta Gopya Rudantan Moho Netra Jugmam Nijantam Karamboja Jugmena Shantaka Netram Mushasha Kampa Tire Kanka Kanta Stitagraiva Damodaram Bhakti Badham Iti Diksalilabhir Ananda Kunde Swagosham Nyamanjantam Akyapayantam Tadi Yeshita Geshu Bhaktarjitatam Puna Prematastam Shatabriti Bande Param Deva Mokshana Moksha Swadimba Nachanyam Briniham Varashadapiha Idam Teva Purnata Gopala Balam Sadame Manasa Virashtam Kimanyai. Excuse me. Idam te mukam bojam anyantanilai Betam kundalai snigda draktaischa gopya Muhushchamitam bimba rakta darame Manashavirastam alang lakshalabhai Namadeva Damodara Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prabhuduka Jalad Bhimagnam Kripa Dristi Vrityati Dinam Bhatanu Grihana Shamam Agyam Ejakshi Drisha Kuvet Majo Badha Mochai Vayadvat Tvayamochito Bhakti Bhajo Krito Cha Tata Prema Bhaktim Shakame Prayacha Namoksha Grahome Shtidhamodareha Namaste tu damne Spuradnipti damne Todyodarayata Vishashadamne Namo Radhikaya Twadya Priyaya Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhya Namo Radhikaya Twadya Priyaye Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhya
Jai.
Namami Hare Krishna Srila Prabhupada ki jai Sri Sri Radha Damodar ki jai.
Can we go quickly to Nasinga Aarti, just single note is fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Namaste Narasimhaya Pralada Lada Dayane Hiranyakasipur Bhakshaha Shilatanka Nakalaye Ito Nishinga Poroto Nishingo Jato Jatoyamitato Nishinha Bohir Nishinga Hridaye Nishinho Nishingamadim Sharanam Prapadye Tavakara Kamala Barenakam Abhuta Shingham Dalitari Ranyakashipu Tanubringham Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Nishingade Jai Nishingadev Jai Nishingadev Jai Nishingadev Jaya Nishingadev Jaya Nishingadev Jaya Nishingadev Jaya Nishingadev Shri Nishinga Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Nitai Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hari Hari Bol.
So, unfortunately, I have to leave you all. I'm already feeling separation.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to hear from you, the singing and for both artists. So thank you so much. I know busy and thank you for making the time for us. And we look forward to again to your association. Absolute nectar, what we heard today, and it really adds value to our knowledge. So thank you for giving your realizations and helping us with your knowledge. And yeah, obviously we'll look at the pastimes in a different way now than we were doing before. So thank you so much for all that. And I know it's very early in the morning, and you're having two classes and maybe more in one day.
I have a third
So
class.
really appreciate.
I have another class, then a meeting, and then another class. It's quite a morning for me.
Wonderful. I have my wife to blame because she listens to your classes and she says we must invite Mahatma Prabhu, and
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
she's going to put the information. And yeah, I really look forward to your classes, and I will try and listen to your classes as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Haribo.
Hare Bol. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. We have the, if anybody wants to read, so maybe I can get them on now. Actually, let's see. Share screen. Okay, if anybody like to read the translations, please do now. Otherwise, I will start.